I know it's been a crazy year with the pandemic and lack of practice and game after game after game. I wonder how difficult is it to assess kind of the players and their growth because obviously with the lack of practice, there were some things they couldn't work on. So how much can you really take away, whether it's from film or just watching with the eye test?
Well, I was fortunate. I watched every game. I didn't watch every practice that we had, the few that we had. But you know what? Everybody was in the same situation throughout the league. We've been the trials and tribulations of 2021 this year. Um, was a giant wave, and I think the things that I saw from players were a lot of positives, a lot of things to be excited about. Um, yeah, I'd say the lack of practice hurt in certain areas, systems and structure that you want to create habits when you step on the ice that you couldn't because of the limited amount of time in practice, especially post our COVID time. But that's no excuse. I just think that when you don't practice, it's hard to create habits. But there was a lot of positives too throughout the season.
Well, what are some of those positives? I know we've seen some growth in players, we've seen some development in players. What are some of the things you've seen?
The same thing. I mean, you can't. I hope everyone's excited about the big steps Jack Hughes took and what he's going to bring and what the future looks like for his game. The surprises of Yanni Kukkonen and Igor Sharangovich and what they brought to the table this year was great. But that's exactly what the year was all about, to see what was underneath the hood of the car and what do we have. In the system, and can they sustain success at this level? But the only way to do that was to give them opportunity, and we did that. It's easy for me to say as the manager, I want to give players A, B, C, D, and E an opportunity, but you have to have a coach that believes in that, and Lindy sure did. And you saw the way he handled our kids, and you saw us reap the benefits from that handling.
That actually leads into my next question. What did you think of Lindy's first year behind the bench, his communication style, and the way he worked with the group?
It's just everything that I knew he would be. He's genuine. He's honest. He can motivate. He's a great listener. He goes out of his way to understand players and listen to them. And I think there's a major trust factor that went between players and Lindy as the head coach of the organization. Players knew that, hey, they don't want to make mistakes, but they could make mistakes, and they weren't going to be punished with ice time. Now, I think if mistakes were continued throughout a game or throughout a player's week in games, Lindy's also got to teach accountability. But I think there was a major trust there. I said his infectious personality, I think, rubbed off on all our players, and I don't think you'll find a player that didn't love playing for Lindy Ruff.
Looking ahead to next year, I know some of the guys commented that obviously this year was about growth and everything, but they want to get results next year. Jack Hughes mentioned that he wanted games 80, 81, and 82 to be meaningful, fighting for playoff spots. Where do you see this team as the next step? What are you looking for this team to grow maybe heading into next year?
Well, it's the same thing. We all want to play meaningful games come this time of the year. We want to gear it up to the big dance, playoffs. I said it from the get-go last year. This group needs to crawl before they get up and walk, and we're at the walking stage, and we want to get running here soon. But you got to learn how to go through the trials and tribulations of a year like this and understand what it takes to win. Understand what it takes to clock manage. That's the winning process. That's understanding. That's a commitment too. There's got to be a commitment from everybody. That's what saying and doing are two different things. We all want to play meaningful games, but we got to do it, and we've got to follow it up with action, and we've got to learn from what the mistakes we made this year, which I think will be paid forward. You look at the division we played in; it was arguably the best division in the NHL this year, and we were in a war every single night. There wasn't one easy game. You're playing the heavy hitters. You look at our division versus the winners of the four divisions last year. Two of those four division leaders last year were in our division this year and won. So it tells you how strong and how deep the division was. And I think, I said this from the get-go, learning how to win isn't something you just snap your fingers. You have to experience it. And we haven't won, but we showed that we can scratch and claw and be in games. We never quit attitude. very resilient group. And again, going along with our youth, I think that's going to apply with success moving forward.
Thank you, Fitzy. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sam. We'll go to Dan Rice with the Hockey Raiders.
Hey, Tom, I'm just curious, how does, Sharon Grove has obviously had a great season this year. How does that change maybe what you were thinking heading into the season as far as things like the Seattle expansion draft coming up?
Well, it sure puts a little spin on that, doesn't it? We will get together as a group here over the next few weeks to formulate what we think our list will look like. We're not there yet. But I do think, the success of some of these young kids that we weren't anticipating this quick has probably changed some things, the outlook of that list.
And would you be willing to reveal a to-do list for us on what you need to do this summer?
Well, I like to compartmentalize with things. There's a lot I have to do. My job entails managing a hockey ops department. That's not just worrying about the draft or free agency. It's going through exit meetings like we've done the last two days. Moving forward, we'll have coaches meetings. Going over what went right, what can we do better, how can we improve, what players we can improve on, what type of roster we should strive to look for, and what pieces we need to add to continue to progress in this phase and get towards our end goal and making the playoffs. Managing employee contracts. There's a lot to do, but I like to just compartmentalize and chip away at it, and we'll start tomorrow as the exit meetings were over today. We'll start with the coaches meetings tomorrow.
And finally, the minor league team will be moving to Utica. I don't remember if I've heard your thoughts on that. Can you just tell us how excited you are for that new partnership and opportunity up there?
Yeah, no, we're extremely excited about Robert Esch and his group in Utica. There's obviously a history with the Devils organization in that community. Yeah, we're very fortunate that this opportunity came up. We had some options. We really enjoyed this past year with our farm team being in New Jersey, right at our home rink. It was advantageous, I think, in a lot of areas. Probably the most is being able to watch our players as often as we did and watch them practice as often as we did. And I say we, I mean myself, management team, the NHL coaching staff, and understand what we have in Binghamton and what we have coming through. But we are excited for Robert and his group to partner up with, and we're looking forward to that.
Just to follow up on that, was keeping the team in New Jersey or Newark ever a possibility or discussion for the convenience factor?
Well, like I said, we had some opportunities and places, and keeping it here would have been an option. But we just felt, with the opportunity of going to Utica, really best fitted what we want to do. And when you get that first call up from your minor league team, it's nice to make that drive, that excitement from the farm team, elsewhere. So instead of walking down the hall and changing locker rooms, so there is something to be said about that.
With fans obviously being a little disappointed with the lack of playoff appearances over the last few years, do you look at the money that you guys have to be able to spend to hit the cap floor as maybe a priority for you guys in this offseason to kind of show the severity of this year coming up?
Well, the priority is to improve the team each year and continue to cross the playoff finish line year to year. There's nothing guaranteed beyond each year. You know that. I absolutely feel how the fans feel about lack of playoff success around here, and I understand it. Selling hope and selling excitement for what these young kids are going to look like is something we have to do. And I know there's no consolation of that this past year, but there was a big step in a lot of areas that will lead to the end result of being a competitive playoff team each and every year moving forward when that time comes. So, I completely sympathize with them, but they have to know that this group that they're watching grow right underneath their eyes is going to be a really good and exciting team in the future. And I don't think I have to oversell that. I think, from what we've seen from these kids is something that just they're selling it themselves, and how excited they are as a young group to grow together. And I'm excited to be the manager of this team moving forward.
I know you don't want to show your cards, obviously, for the off season, and that you really can't speak about players that are on other teams at the moment. But there are a number of pending free agents that do have ties to this team from being former players here. Does that kind of factor into your thought process of possibly bringing back ex-Devils to return to the team?
Well, you said it. I can't comment on other teams' players, whether they're ex-Devils or not. Again, I can't reiterate enough how my job and how important it is to better the team in areas that we need to improve on, whether that be through trades or free agency in July 28th. But we'll go through that process here internally with the group and kind of check the boxes and start making lists. This year is no different than past years. You make your so-called wish list. And try to execute it, and just with the goal of improving the team, not just immediately, but for long term.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Robert. We'll go now to Steve Politi, NewJersey.com.
Hey, Tom, how do you know as a general manager when to go for it? And by that I mean when you've looked under the hood, you see what you have with the car, and now you see the roster where you start getting aggressive, where you start making moves designed to win immediately.
Not sure. It's technically my first year as a general manager. So, but I think when I can go back and lean on my playing days, coaching days, development days, that you kind of can see the consistency in a team. You can see guys flourishing in different roles, buying into those roles, committed to those roles, committed to a system, and your top players being your top players. So, I think it just happens underneath your, right underneath your nose. But like I said, in the past, we've got really good some corner pieces here that you can build around. It's my job to support those corner pieces with additions of personnel. So, whether that's internally under the hood or whether that's somewhere, acquiring that someplace else. But that's the goal, but I do think the way we set out to build this team was through the draft and through development and growing these players internally, and that's the goal. And we're not going to cut corners, and we're not going to cheat either. I think, like I said many times, there should be excitement for what people are watching now and what that's going to translate to later.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. We'll go over to Corey Massasak with The Athletic.
Tom, a few players have mentioned, various minor injuries, I think. Is there anything – do you have anybody on your roster that you think their off-season training program is going to be affected by injury?
No, not to my awareness as of today. I think there's some minor things guys have to get done, some rest for different injuries for certain players, but to my knowledge, I don't see anybody having any hiccups with their summer training.
No surgeries that you know of?
Like I said, there may be some minor stuff, but I don't think that'll stop somebody from getting stronger and doing their workouts this summer.
Alexander Holtz is an obvious guy, but is there anybody that didn't play for your team this year that you're excited to see at the main training camp next year?
There's a couple players I think that we can look at. We saw glimpses of Tice Thompson. I think with a good summer ahead of him of getting stronger. Coming into his first camp, he should show us exactly what type of player he's going to be and where he's at in that stage. You talk about Holtz coming in, and I think coming over here and spending time here like he has, I think is only going to benefit him and us, and allows us to really, put our hands around him for his development. and keep him here to start his workouts, go home, and then come back, I think will be advantageous to a good start to his North American career. And the one player that I've actually we've all been talking about, and he's only 19 years old, and because of the OHL, he got to play in our league and play for Binghamton. Is Graham Clark. He's a very smart player, lots of skill. He gets to the inside. He's got good speed. He's grown. Not that he was small, but he's just there's a lot to like about his game, and seeing that at this level is really exciting. Michael Vukocevic, same thing. Big, strong, mobile. Is not afraid to get his nose dirty. Things that every team's looking for. And trying to think who else. I think there are players that have taken big steps. Studenich took a really big step this year and became a go-to guy down there and had earned those games with us here in New Jersey. Fabian Zetterlund's on another good path. He's making really good strides. I look at Sharon Govich, I look at Maltsev and the strides that they made from year one of their North American pro career to year two, and obviously this being year three for Shara. We anticipate we're going to have other guys like that to come through and surprise us. Lots to look forward to. Dawson Mercer's turning pro this year, so we're all excited about that as well.
Yeah. Is there any of your European guys that have not come over yet that you could see signing this summer and coming over?
Not right now. I don't really anticipate that. Musil and Mukamadulin under contract for their respective KHL teams. That's not next. We've got to make decisions on some other guys just because time will be running out. Akira Schmid will be a guy that we'll be signing here shortly. We're excited about him. You saw Nico Dawes, who played in Germany all year. Excited about him as well. So, but other than that, I don't anticipate, unless I'm missing somebody, I don't anticipate additions.
Do you foresee making any? You mentioned the hockey ops department. Do you foresee making any additions to your hockey ops department between now and next season?
I do, actually. I think my goal is to really find great people that are passionate about hockey that can help this organization move forward, be successful. Like I said, be passionate, hardworking, committed is our characteristics that I'm looking for in people. People with growth mindsets that want to grow and get better and learn and not be just, hey, matter of fact, this is what I know, but are looking to improve their database of knowledge. So I do. I see adding in certain departments, and then there would be other departments where you may be looking to add a piece or two. But I do. I'm in no rush, to be quite honest. I don't. There are certain areas that we're working on as an organization to better equipped ourselves with making decisions. So I'm excited about all the things that we're working on, the projects we're working on right now. And you need good people to help with that.
And so there was some reporting during the season about your contract status. Has there been any change to your contract since the season or anything like that?
No, I have a commitment to this organization long term, to Josh and David, who I feel are equally committed to me. My goal is to help them build this organization from the hockey ops side, and become a winner and take this organization back to where the people who are long-standing fans, the alumni, wanted to get to the levels that they were accustomed to back in the 90s and 2000s, and that's my job, and I'm committed to that, and I'm committed long term, and I know David and Josh are committed to me long term.
Thanks, Tom.
Welcome.
Thank you, Corey. We'll go over to Mike Morial with NHL.com.
Good afternoon, Tom. How do you anticipate you and your scouting staff navigating this draft? Probably more uncertainty than any other year, Fitzy. I mean, I guess we know the names, but I guess it's getting them in the right spot. So how do you deal with that?
That's a magical question, Mike. You know, it's a unique year. Somewhat surprised that there actually is going to be a draft, but the league felt, you know, this is where we should be, and we just have to go about our business and do the best we can. Everybody's in the same place. Like the playing field is even. There's one league that hasn't even played, so you have kids that haven't even played. You know, unless they're good enough to make their World Under 18 team out of the Ontario Hockey League. But you just go back and you're watching past film on guys and trying to project. The other kids, there's enough of a database that we can go off of. So the processes that we've put in place are no different than last year, and the criteria that we're looking for in players, and how do we get to that. And I'm very confident in my group that understanding what we want in players as a New Jersey Devil. So I'm very confident in that, and I look forward now to really diving in, because I haven't had much time to do that for the obvious reason. I would have loved to have gone down to the U18s. I just felt it was important to be around this team at this time and around our staff, and not have to come back in quarantine and not be around. So I really look forward to jumping in myself here. I love watching film on kids, and that's what I'll do.
Do you get a sense at all, Fitz, from speaking with the scouting team, that there might be an area of strength in this draft, be it defense, center, goalie?
I believe we're going to get a really good player wherever we end up picking with our first pick. I think there's some real quality defensemen from my understanding. Obviously, same with up front, probably even in the top 10. There's I think a Swedish goalie that's supposed to be high end, another Canadian Western League goalie that's supposed to be high end. So I think it's probably a mix, Mike. But I do know we're going to get a really good player wherever we draft.
So your turn comes up. Luke Hughes is still on the board. Would you expect a phone call or a text from a certain player on your roster?
Well, again, we'll go through the process of how we build this list out, and where certain players with certain last names end up is we're going to be true to the process. I could just be frank about that. But I'm sure the Hughes family is very excited about where Luke's going to be, and what kind of player he's going to be, and versus the other two. It must be exciting to have two NHL players under the same roof, never mind a future NHL player. So must be in the water in the Hughes' house.
Sure. One more, Fitzy. I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier on too, but can you pinpoint at all one glaring hole on the roster that, whether it be through the draft or through free agency, maybe you might want to consider filling?
Well, like I said, over the next couple of days, we're going to go through that here with the coaching staff, and whether that's being harder to play with more grit. What are we going to do? Listen, we lost Corey Crawford this year. That was a punch to the gut. When that happened, that call I got. I do think we have to reassess our goaltending and see where we're at, and decide which way we want to go with whether it's a 1A, a 1B combo, or is it a true number 2 where McKenzie's playing whatever 70-30. We're going to go through that here in the next couple of days, and those answers that I'll get will result into an action plan moving forward and what we do. You can never have enough good defensemen. You know that, Mike. It's you just they're the heartbeat of your team, and you want to be harder to play against. We kind of gave ourselves some flexibility this year with some 1-year deals, and but at the end of the day, we're going to have to draft and develop our own players. We're seeing some of those kids up front. We want to see some of it in the back end, and but like I said, we'll be going over this with the staff here in the next few days, and right into our pro meetings and our draft meetings, amateur meetings coming up here in the next month.
Thanks, Fitzy. Hope you can enjoy some downtime this summer.
Thanks,
care.
Mike. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Tom. I appreciate you doing this today. I'm just wondering, in terms of this team, obviously everybody's had different financial impacts, ownership and everything like that. Have you gotten everything from your ownership group that if next season or whenever that is that you want to spend and utilize some of the financial resources they have, you have full license to do that, spending to the cap, I guess?
Josh and David allow me to do my job, and they are passionate about getting the New Jersey Devils back to the winning ways. If that means spending money for the right pieces, then we'll spend money. We're going to do it the right way. We've got processes in place that we adhere by to make proper decisions on players, even salaries and terms, things like that, which is exciting. But they've entrusted me to do this with my group. They've been great as owners, in a pandemic year like this, and lack of revenue coming into the organizations, all organizations. Not once have they ever said no to any resource we had. We moved our team from Binghamton, New York to here. It's a pretty costly move when you think about treating the players the right way, testing every day for our Binghamton players, assuring that their health is comes first. Nope, I couldn't have asked for a better situation, and again, they've never said no to me, and all I'm trying to do is keep moving this ship forward to get it where everybody, including Josh and David, want this ship to be. Again, to get to a place where we are playing meaningful games.
You mentioned the scouting, especially I think you're alluding to the OHL, how their league didn't operate at all this year. There's been some reporting that there's a possibility of maybe a prospect tournament or game. Have you heard anything further on that might be available to you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, they're just kicking this around with the 3 different leagues up there. And again, I don't know how many teams. Is it one team per? Is it an all-star team from the OHL of just draft-eligible kids? The details I have not heard exactly, but I have heard that the rumblings of potentially doing something with those 3 leagues in particular.
And then just one more from me. You've been around this organization, for a while now in different capacities, but Miles Wood said something interesting this morning. He said that eventually he grew up and he wanted that leadership position there. I mean, you're his boss. How do you, first of all, how did you see his game? But also, how nice does that make you feel? Because you're having a lot of these younger players now have impacts on such a young roster. I mean, they're growing up now.
Well, it's a great question. Sometimes you just, when you get thrown into the fire, you just react and you do what comes natural. When you trade away, good people and leaders that we had at deadlines, it should excite younger players and force them into roles that they weren't accustomed to, but have learned from and have grown potentially from. And Miles, in this case, he took a significant step in the leadership role for this team. Boisterous, he just his voice was heard. It's heavy. He's respected in the locker room. He gets it. He's it was just sometimes you got to remove some. And again, no ex-player is called a hurdle, but when voices are heavier elsewhere around the room, sometimes your voice isn't heard. And when those voices are turned down a bit or removed, people's voices get louder, and Miles has definitely got louder this year.
Thanks so much, Tom. I really appreciate your time. Just want to let you know how good your PR staff was with us all this year, too. It was great. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, and they are great.
Thank you, Neil. We'll go to one more. We'll go to Tom Canavan with Associated Press.
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
Hi, Tom.
Couple of quick ones. I mean, I've seen all the capology stuff, and your cap space is listed as anywhere from 11 to 19 million. Where are you?
I don't have it right in front of me, Tom, but it's low, because of what came off the books here. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty. It's no secret. It's pretty low.
Okay. Number 2 is Jonas and Matt Tennyson both said they're going to Worlds. How many guys are going altogether?
So Jonas, Nico to Team Switzerland. Matt Tennyson is going to going with the U.S. team. Matt Hellickson, who's a 7th-round draft pick who was playing here in Binghamton, is going over as well with the U.S. Kevin Ball just got added to the Canadian team. I think Bratt is still waiting if it's possible for him to go. There's some potential complications with not immigration but tax purposes of him leaving the States here and heading back over. Am I missing anyone? I know Severson couldn't go, Blackwood couldn't go, Wood couldn't go, Butcher couldn't go. I think that's about it.
Okay.
Marion Studi, too.
Who?
Oh, Marion Student. Yeah, Student. He's playing for the Slovakian team. Thanks, Pete.
Okay. All right. And my final question is, I mean, we all see potential. I mean, is there a magic formula that changes potential into doing it all the time? I mean, like if you look at NHL champions, everybody's got this 40-goal scorer or a super, defensive guy. I mean, what makes a Jack Hughes into a, 40-goal scorer? Is the potential there to be built?
Oh, as far as numbers, I can't point to a certain amount of goals that Jack Hughes in particular is going to score. I think Jack has more than potential. Like, I think he showed that he's going to be an elite player in this league with the potential of scoring 40 goals. Now, that comes with his off-ice training. He's a determined and committed young player that wants to get stronger and wants to get better in certain areas. Tinkering with sticks and things like that. It all comes with the territory of finding the right tool to play with. And finding the right players, and helping him find the right players to play with that can actually bear down and score 40 goals or whatever that may be. But I think when we use the word potential, I think that's you're seeing real life. What am I looking to say? Like I think Jack's real. I don't think there's any potential there. I think he's beyond that.
Super. That's what I needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have anything further for Tom Fitzgerald? Okay, great. Thank you, Fitzy.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great summer.